the summer of 1914, Europe did not march into war thinking it was stepping into a furnace that would consume millions. Across the capitals of Europe, crowds waved flags, bands played patriotic songs, and young men boarded trains believing they would return home before the leaves had fallen from the trees. Politicians spoke confidently. Generals pointed to timetables and railway schedules as if war were a mathematical equation. Newspapers predicted victory within months. The world had seen wars before, but most leaders imagined another fast-moving conflict like the wars of the 1800s, where armies maneuvered dramatically, capitals fell quickly, and treaties followed soon after. Instead, the world was about to discover that industrial civilization had transformed warfare into something almost unrecognizable. The machines that powered factories, railroads, and global empires were now about to power destruction on a scale humanity had never experienced. At the center of this illusion was speed. Germany believed it could avoid fighting a long war on two fronts by crushing France in the west before turning east toward Russia, whose vast empire was considered too slow to mobilize quickly. France believed its offensive spirit and national pride could retake lost territories in weeks. Russia believed its sheer size and manpower would overwhelm enemies. Britain expected its powerful navy and economic strength to pressure Germany into collapse. Almost every side believed the war would be decided before economies or societies truly felt the strain. It was a world hypnotized by confidence, marching proudly into an age of machine guns, barbed wire, heavy artillery, poison gas, and industrial logistics. The generals prepared for the wars of Napoleon, but the factories had already invented the wars of the 20th century. The opening weeks seemed to confirm the dream of rapid victory. Germany surged through Belgium with terrifying speed. Massive armies moved like steel rivers across Europe. Entire populations watched maps and newspapers as cities fell one after another. But then came the Battle of the Marne in 1914. Just outside Paris, exhausted armies collided and halted the German advance. Neither side could land the knockout blow. Both armies dug into the earth to survive artillery fire, and those temporary trenches soon stretched from the North Sea to Switzerland like scars across the continent. The war stopped moving. Europe became trapped. Every attempt to advance meant charging across open ground into machine guns, capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute. Soldiers who had grown up in an age of electricity and automobiles now fought like prisoners buried in mud. The technology of defense had become stronger than the technology of attack. A few men with machine guns could stop thousands. Barbed wire shredded advancing formations. Artillery pulverized landscapes into moonscapes of craters and shattered trees. Railroads allowed nations to continuously reinforce their defensive lines faster than attackers could break through them. Generals kept ordering offensives anyway, believing one more push could finally crack the enemy front. Instead, entire generations vanished in battles, measured not by kilometers gained, but by casualties suffered. Verdun, the Somme, Passchendaele, names that became symbols of industrial slaughter. At the Somme alone, Britain suffered tens of thousands of casualties on the first day. Soldiers drowned in mud, vanished under shell fire, or survived only to face endless bombardment. Europe's most advanced civilization had become a gigantic machine feeding human lives into trenches. But the war did not remain only a military struggle. It became an economic war, an industrial war, and a psychological war. Entire societies were mobilized. Factories shifted from consumer goods to weapons production. Women entered industrial workforces in massive numbers. Governments rationed food and controlled industries. Britain used naval blockades to slowly starve Germany of resources. Germany responded with submarine warfare, trying to cut Britain off from global trade. Colonies from India, Africa, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand were pulled into the conflict, turning a European war into a global one. The conflict expanded because modern economies were interconnected. Nations could no longer fight limited wars easily. Once industrial powers mobilized completely, the pressure to continue became overwhelming. Too much blood, money, and national pride had already been invested to stop halfway. By 1917, the war had transformed society so deeply that revolutions began erupting from the strain. In Russia, economic collapse, military defeats, and public exhaustion exploded into revolution. The Russian Empire collapsed, and the Bolsheviks eventually seized power, creating the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare helped pull the United States into the conflict. Fresh American troops and industrial capacity tipped the balance against the exhausted Central Powers. In 1918, Germany finally collapsed under blockade, starvation, mutiny, and relentless Allied offensives. The guns fell silent on November 11, 1918. But peace did not truly arrive. The war had destroyed empires, economies, and faith in the old world order. Millions returned home traumatized, wounded, or disillusioned. Influenza swept across exhausted populations. Entire regions lay in ruins. And yet many leaders still believed they could build a stable peace through punishment and revenge. The Treaty of Versailles attempted to end the war, but instead planted seeds for another catastrophe. Germany was blamed heavily for the conflict, burdened with reparations, territorial losses, and military restrictions. Many Germans felt humiliated and betrayed. Economic crises, hyperinflation, and unemployment shattered trust in democratic governments. Across Europe, fear of communism, anger over lost territories, and resentment from wartime suffering fueled extremist movements. The war that was supposed to end quickly had instead shattered the political balance of Europe. Old empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire disappeared, leaving unstable borders and bitter ethnic tensions behind. Meanwhile, technological advances made during World War I continued evolving. Tanks, aircraft, mechanized industry, and mass propaganda did not vanish with the armistice. They waited. 2 decades later, many of the unresolved wounds reopened. Adolf Hitler rose by exploiting German anger over Versailles in economic collapse. Militarism returned. Nations rearmed. The fragile peace built after World War I slowly cracked apart. In many ways, World War II was not an entirely separate story, but the continuation of a storm that had never truly ended. The First World War destroyed the old world, but failed to create a stable new one. What began in 1914 as a war expected to last months instead became a 4-year catastrophe that reshaped the 20th century, toppled empires, radicalized societies, and opened the road toward an even deadlier conflict. The world entered the war believing technology and progress had made civilization unstoppable. Instead, it discovered that progress without wisdom could turn entire continents into ruins.